Hey all, it is February 26th, 2023, and I thought time to do a winter update for you all. So this winter has been a little unusual in that we got cold really fast. Generally, November is one of the most pleasant months out of the year in my opinion, and it was quite cold this year. And we got frost dates very early, and the yard out here in the West Valley, Phoenix, Arizona, saw a lot of 30s this year. It wasn't so bad in that we didn't see those 20s, but the plants definitely got a lot of cold and wind and some freezing temps. So let's take a look and see how things were doing. Here we're looking at the mango patch. Surprisingly, some of these mangoes look untouched. This Malika here doesn't have a whole lot of coverage, and you can see that the leaves look pretty nice. Don't see any burn really to them. So the Malika seems to have more cold tolerance than some of the other mangoes. This Namdok Mai, which is pretty well sheltered with the overhead bamboo, is also looking just fine. See, a number of these mangoes are fine. The lemon meringue is the exception here. It did get fried pretty bad. And I'm not sure if that's just placement, even though it's just a couple feet away from some of these other plants. But we definitely see leaf burn on that, and then quite a few of the leaves actually dropped because they burn up so badly. Even this orange sherbet does have some leaf burn to it. So all in all, mangoes are looking just fine. They were never covered during this winter. They just have the coverage from the bamboo, which after the winds that we've gotten, we had up to 50-mile-per-hour winds not too long ago that really blew the yard apart and knocked a lot of foliage off the plants. Fortunately, we're coming to the close of winter here. I believe it's going to be 36 tonight, and then we'll be back into the 40s. Citrus is absolutely untouched by the winter. Ice cream bean here, you can see some damage to the foliage. Turn around here, Jabdacaba. Doesn't look all that great. Definitely a lot of burn to the leaves. Bananas actually surprisingly look just fine. Typically it's when we get into those 20s that they start to look bad and, can blacken. But good green foliage on them. They are battered by the wind, you can see. Leaves are really cut up. Sapodilla looks just fine. And in general, these do pretty well in our winters. They don't really get affected. One plant that definitely did not care for freezing temps is this little sugar apple. You can see it's totally defoliated and really dropped its leaves on that first night where we hit cold temperatures. The limbs are still very pliable, so it's not dead by any means, but fully defoliated. Sugar apple does not care for those winter temps here. See some signs of spring. You can see foliage starting to emerge on the pomegranate. So that's nice to see. Fig trees are starting to wake up. On the Chicago Hardy, you can start to see the sign of this guy waking up where the buds are swelling. Flowers about to come out on the orange tree. Royal Poinciana really got blown to pieces. Really doesn't have any foliage left on it at all. Again, since we didn't see 20s, I don't think this is going to suffer any major damage. Every year, even in mild winters, you will see some small limb dieback on these plants where the smaller limbs will blacken, and I just leave those on and cut them around April when this tree starts to spurt new growth out. Taking a look at this frankincense, it looks pretty much unharmed. The upper canopy, I do see some brown leaves, not even limb dieback this year, just some leaves that fried. So not a big deal. You can see the stone fruit are pretty much all dormant still. Apple, apium, and pear. This Panache Tiger actually is already broken bud here. can see figs emerging and leaves popping out. What's odd about this particular variety is this used to be my latest to fruit, and now it seems to be the earliest. This has been growing in ground for about 6 years now. See, the lemon tree is still got a good amount of fruit on it, and it's starting to put on new growth and buds. The Katy apricot is full of bloom right now, looking nice. Suriname cherry, as expected, has some discoloration on the leaves. When it gets cold, even just in the 30s, it tends to have red leaves develop on it. Similar to guava, you'll notice your guava trees often have this red coloration on the leaves. Not a big deal. Barbados cherry is looking just fine. It's just a little bit light of its leaf matter. Again, that storm really blew a lot of leaves off the trees. Stripped them. My first year growing blueberries, you can see this sharp blue is just full of bloom right now. So we'll see if I get a blueberry harvest this year. It's kind of exciting. This is the Premier Loquat that I put in this last year. You can see some fruit has developed on it. Loquats always look good in winter. This is really the time of the year they favor. And if you're growing guava, chances are you've got your second crop of fruit ripening up here. This is my Tikal. You can see actually quite a bit of fruit hanging in the tree. And then because of our winds, I've also got a fair amount down on the ground. I'll show you again, the bamboo really looks quite stripped and barren. It'll regrow leaves once we hit warmer times, but the winds really knocked a lot of foliage off. Beyond the apricot, you can see my Anna apple also is in full bloom right now. Beautiful. The bees are usually all over this. Definitely a winner for our climate if you're looking for a good apple cultivar. So I have started the grafting process on my fig trees. This is just about the time when you want to start grafting, just around bud break. Not all the fig trees are awake, but they will be soon. Quince is starting to break bud here. On the subtropicals, you can see the longan is pretty much untouched. A little bit of damage to the foliage up on top. Really more wind than anything. Some discoloration. Black sapote also looks pretty good this year. We do have the occasional branch that had some cold damage. You can see here, these are brittle and they break. So some small limb dieback on the black sapote. Apparently this area right here just experienced a bit more cold. It doesn't have the shelter of any nearby trees. So got a little bit of damage. You can see up here the leaves dried up and burnt. But for the most part, this tree is getting protected by the white sapote next door, which is doing amazing in winter as it always does. No damage at all to this tree. It's actually putting on all of its bloom right now. Generally, this tree is just covered in bees. It's kind of cold today. We had some rain and storm coming through, so we don't have the bees out right now, but you can just see all the flowers on this tree. So that's definitely one you never have to worry about in winters here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Like the other citrus, my key lime is putting on bloom here. And new foliage. And the roses are putting on, a lot of new growth right now. Getting ready for spring. So really, happy to see winter kind of exit. It's not really my favorite time of the year. You know, it's a time where a lot of your trees are bare because they're deciduous, so not the prettiest time of the year in the garden. So excited to see us transition out of that and into spring and see all the new growth come in. But all in all, this year has not been bad for us. We've gotten a fair amount of rain and really haven't had to water, and the trees have gotten through just fine. Of course, I did keep all my container plants in the garage, overwintered them, so they wouldn't get damaged. Likewise, if you caught my video on cold protection, my plumeria, the only one in ground, I did also protect. And it's come out of winter just fine. You can see all the tips are nice and green, ready for spring. Hope you enjoyed this quick tour and update.